we're talking about a very, very interesting topic. Okay, Mr. John here. Okay, bear with me, John,
That's
because
okay.
your name is familiar. This is a very prestigious name, John Hopkins. There was a John Hopkins University. Okay, so you are very prestigious. Okay, in my eyes. Okay, so this is a very interesting topic we're going to talk about today. John Hoppy Hopkins. Okay, he is the publisher of Dying to Live with Purpose. Okay, literally. So me too. We have a lot in common. Okay, and because without purpose, why am I here in this world? Okay, I'm just existing, right? So, like I said, this is a very interesting topic, and we talked briefly. I didn't seek him out. Okay, he sought me out, and so I don't know. Is this a sign? So this, I saw on your publication that you've been on Substack for about 9 months.
That's right. Although I sort of officially launched just a couple of months ago, but it took me a long time to figure out how to set my Substack up and fiddle around with the settings. So yeah, I'm only about 2 months into this now.
2 months or 9 months?
Yeah. Well, that's when I first set the site up,
So talk to us about your journey and what made you come to Substack.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, around 2 years ago, I had an epiphany that I was supposed to work with death, and this was a big left field moment for me that I never saw coming. I never in a million years imagined that I was going to work with death. My background is in entertainment. I was a film director for 15, 20 years. I found a very early passion in making films when I was in my early teens, and I felt very lucky to have found something I could really pour myself into. And then I set up an aerial drone light display company called Celestial in around 2018. We did big light shows in the sky. And then, about 2 years ago, I was having panic attacks because my business was suffering. We were going through a real big crisis. And because it was my business and I felt so tangled up in it, as I felt my business was dying in a way, I started to feel like I was dying. And that was causing me a lot of mental health problems. And in the evenings, I was listening to a philosopher of mine who I love called Ram Dass, just to kind of calm my nerves down so I could sleep. And he kept saying that working with dying people or sitting with dying people was the highest work he'd ever done in terms of the most noble work. And I suddenly had this light bulb moment where I realized I've had several near-death experiences in my life. And now I'm going through another death kind of experience. Something in me was obviously not working and was jarring with what I was doing. And I wondered to myself, maybe I was supposed to work with death, kind of as a joke. And then I felt my purpose coming at me like a rhino, and it was death. And I was like, please, no, anything but this. Not this. But it was too powerful. And I surrendered and I let it wash over me. And I had a sort of physical reaction as I felt my purpose deepen. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do now? So that was the beginning of my journey into death. So I became a death doula, or a soul midwife is the correct terminology for the training I did. But as I started to sit with dying people and sort of explore death, I actually realized what I was exploring was how to live fully. So I wrote a book, which I've got on a shelf ready to publish. But a friend of mine said, before you publish that, maybe you should launch it all on Substack. So that's why I'm here now. And my publication, Dying to Live a Purpose, is all about raising people's awareness of their mortality, because we live in a society that essentially doesn't want to have anything to do with death. And so we don't talk about it. We pretend it doesn't exist. And as a result, we take life for granted. And this has severe consequences, not just to our own potential in life, but also to everything we do as a society, from politics to economics to education. We're making all these decisions based out of a fear that we're not even aware of. and the fear of death, which sits under all fears, is something no one wants to discuss. So I'm here to kind of bring this into the open and have a discussion and hopefully make this conversation accessible and, dare I say it, fun. Because my background as a comedy film director, I want to kind of
Wow.
bring joy and color into this conversation, and hopefully, it's such an important conversation and no one's having it at the moment.
You're right. And I like to address those topics, the elephant in the room that nobody want to talk about. And that is the reason why we still walking around with this trauma, okay? Because we refuse to deal with it, okay? Until we deal with it, it's going to follow us to the grave, okay?
That's right.
So that's what you're talking about right now. So
Yes.
it sounds interesting. Like I said, I didn't seek you out. You like the Grim Reaper. Okay. I'm like, oh no, I run the other way. But we have to have these conversations. But I'll tell you why. Because my stepmother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Okay. So we had two choices. She could die in the hospital or she could die at home. She was going to die. We all going to die. It's inevitable. And so that's why it's so important for us to live each day to the fullest, okay? Because our last day could be today. We could go out there and have a head-on collision and be dead. So we need to take these things in consideration, okay?
Yes.
So we decided to let her die at home, okay? So they came to a point where they stopped giving her medicine, stopped feeding her. They were basically giving her morphine, just making her comfortable. And they always say you see them getting better before they pass on to the other side. And we started seeing that she was getting better, but right after that, she passed away because the doctor usually will tell you, well, you got 6 months to live. Okay. Just say, for example, the doctor tell you, oh, I got 6 months to live. Then you're going to start thinking about all the things that you always wanted to do and never took the time off, never wanted to spend the money. Those are the things you're going to want to do. Why not do that now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. And that's the psychology that I'm trying to bring in with my work, is making people to wake up to owning, getting into that bucket list now. Don't postpone what needs to be said, what needs to be done. And what's so interesting is the moment you start to acknowledge your mortality. And by the way, Buddhist monks every morning, when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they do is they meditate on their own death, just for a few minutes. And then what happens is they're able to step into every day in full gratitude for being alive and aware of like the preciousness of each day that we normally take for granted, right? We think we're going to live forever, and we just sort of, and as a result of taking life for granted, we postpone all the important things, or we often do. So by acknowledging your mortality, what happens is you start to wake up to your time is finite. And when you do that, you realize you need to get on with your bucket list. And so you start to try new things. You step out of your comfort zone. You discover bravery that you never had before. You start to realize you could do things that you never thought were possible. And suddenly, before you know it, you're stepping into your potential and you're stepping into deeper purpose in life. Right? So it's a very simple like chain reaction, and it just starts remembering your mortality.
Absolutely. So I remember back in the day growing up in Detroit, there was Jack Kevorkian. I know you got to remember Jack Kevorkian.
I don't ring a bell.
He was called Dr. Death. They made a movie about him, and he would
Right.
go and take people out of their misery, basically.
Okay.
But he was doing it illegally. So that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because every state has its laws and regulations. Okay. That's not to say, you see somebody is really suffering and really, really, you can't take it and they can't take it. And they say, well, can you please, so, you see situations like that. So what's your thoughts about that?
You mean about euthanasia? Is that your question?
I don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I get, like many things in our current systems, everything needs rethinking and reforming, and death is the only thing in life that's guaranteed.
That's
I think
true.
it's quite interesting that it's the only thing that's universal and guaranteed through any human life, and yet there's such little sort of effort put into kind of managing it, and as a result of that, the majority of people in the West certainly die very fear-stricken deaths, and the whole euthanasia conversation is also fascinating. And the right to choose when you die is a personal freedom, in my opinion. But I think everything wrapped around death, the whole conversation, needs real examination and rejuvenation, because by pushing it aside, we're essentially living life out of balance, because life and death are two ends of the same spectrum. And we're pretending this one doesn't exist. So this one's completely out of whack right now. The life one is out of whack.
Yeah, so we want to be ignorant about it, or we want to be coming from a position of strength, because most people that they'll say, well, I'm dead. I don't care what you do. You can put me out on garbage day. To me, that's just not the right thing to say.
Yeah.
Okay, because families be in probate court for years because families are fighting for this
Yeah.
treasure or whatever, and it destroys family. Everything is
Oh, yeah.
destroyed. So
Yeah.
why would you want to leave that in somebody else's hands? Take care of it while you're in the right mind to be
Yes.
able to handle these things, right? Because your family is already broken up, especially if you're the bearer, if you're taking care of the household, all the finances and everything, that's even more reason why you need to know what's going on. Is because that person died. You don't know the codes to
Yeah. Yeah.
the safe deposit box. You don't know where all this stuff is. You need to know. Okay. Do you want a member of your family taking care of this? I would prefer to have a neutral third party handling all of these things. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Because then people are looking at their own self-interest. We're family, right? That's the first ones that's going to cut you, is your family,
Yes.
the ones that's closest to you. So you need to have your stuff in order. Would you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you're just highlighting another brilliant example of when we don't talk about this subject, which obviously is uncomfortable, it
It
causes
is.
all sorts of problems, for the family, for yourself, for everything. So the more we can kind of bring this conversation back into the open, the better, and the quicker we do it, the better. And I suppose my whole life's work now is trying to figure out how to make this conversation more accessible for people. So I have a long-term vision of one day having this conversation in schools, homes, and offices around the world. This is something that we all discuss. They're all comfortable discussing, and all of these chronic problems start to go away. And in fact, I'm actually developing an AI tool right now, which is called Reverse Story. And I had this idea of, if you could imagine how you want to feel at the end of your life, so with no regrets, because about 70% of people die with major regrets in life. That is a known statistic. Okay. So we make plans all the time, like 1, 3, 5 year life plans. Now imagine going all the way to the end and imagine and fix and visualizing how you want to feel at the end of your life, and then reverse engineer your life back from there. Okay. And I've built an AI tool now that does this. So you answer a series of questions, and then it's going to give you your ultimate life plan starting today. That's going to result in how in a feeling of peace and completeness at the end of your life. And if you can get to that feeling, intuitively, everything in your life has taken care of itself, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tech tool that I'm going to be releasing to Substack subscribers, hopefully in about a month or two.
All right. Okay. Sounds good. No, seriously, it is. It's very important, because we all need to be thinking about these things now while we're in our right mind. Because people have
Yes.
dementia,
Yeah.
Alzheimer's and things like that, and it's downhill from there. You can't, it progressively gets worse.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we have to take care of ourselves, and that's important. Okay, and so. When you say you are a death doula, can you explain the process of what exactly you do?
So, as a soul midwife is the
Okay, sorry.
terminology. Yeah, no, that's okay. It's a type of death doula. I basically provide holistic and spiritual care for people at the end of life. So, you know, what tends to happen is because no one wants to talk about death, um, we're not educated about it either. So when it arrives, people don't really know what to do with it. They don't know how to handle it, and it's often handled really badly. And a lot of people don't even want to talk about it when it's happening within their family. So a death doula, like a birth doula, is available to offer support either to the person who's dying or to the loved ones around a person who's dying, to provide a kind of safe space for conversation, a kind of life jacket, as it were, for everybody, so that they can navigate those difficult times effectively.
It's very important.
Yeah.
That's very important. Now, how do you get paid?
Well, death doulaing is kind of a forgotten art, but it's just the last 5-10 years. There's been a real resurgence and people recognizing that there is this missing piece in the jigsaw of life, which is that sort of support at the end of life. Most people just get shipped off to hospital and die in a bed, but
Hospice.
actually, yes, and back in the day, all of our indigenous ancestors, every community would have somebody who would be there for people at the end of life. And slowly, as we've, I suppose, organized our society so we're all living in individual houses and we no longer live with our elders, etc., that piece of the jigsaw has been lost and forgotten. So it's coming back now. And I actually see death doulaing over the next 10, 20 years becoming a major wellness movement as people recognize the deep importance of having that energy and presence available at the end of life to support people.
This is amazing work. I couldn't do it, but I applaud you for real because it's very important. It's very vital. Just
Yeah,
like we
it's
need
crucial.
people. Yeah, just like we need people from birth through our lives, belongingness. This is part of
Yeah,
belongingness as well. And
exactly.
people deserve to die in dignity.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah,
Peace. Okay? And yeah, exactly.
exactly. And like I said earlier, death is the only thing that's guaranteed in life. And
That's
isn't it
true.
weird? Isn't it weird that the only thing that's guaranteed in life has no support structure around it in that
It
sense?
it is. It is.
Yeah. So, and your question, how do you get paid? There are people now who are, I suppose, becoming more professional with this service, and there are people who are now making decent careers out of it. And I hope that more and more people see it as a potential career opportunity for them, and the more smart kind of people that come in and do it, I see this becoming like a proper industry that is well funded and people can have meaningful, well paid careers in it. But they
Absolutely. Just
deserve
like
it, you know.
absolutely, because I wouldn't do it. Mortuary
Yeah,
science, for example. You never have to worry about being unemployed.
yeah,
Okay?
exactly. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, it's like I was so scared when I was first stepping into this work because it felt like such a I suppose experiencing the fears that everyone experiences when you're considering these big subjects. But when I actually started studying the death doulaing, I realized what an exceptional honor and privilege it is to hold space for people at the end of life. It is a very, very sacred energy to be in. And I had no idea about the sort of magnitude of the privilege, as it were. And the more I studied it, the more I sort of threw myself into it and realized, wow, this is such an honor to even be, studying this at least, and then to be actually sitting with people who are at the end of life. You really feel how special it is to be there for people at that stage,
Yeah, because a lot of times these people's families not even there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's true. Especially, there's a lot of people who die alone in hospital.
Exactly. People just
Yeah.
leave them over there and send them to these places to die because they don't want to be bothered with them. Okay, but when you were growing up, and they made all these sacrifices, your parents or whatever made all these sacrifices for you, it was okay. But now they become a liability because they are old. You don't want to be bothered. Well, you're gonna your day coming, and you're gonna get old one day too. And who's gonna take care of you? Remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think by pushing that side of life away and hiding it behind the curtain, there's a lot of wisdom that we're losing by witnessing death, especially for even younger people. Like, lots of parents say, oh, I don't want our children to see granny's dead body or whatever it is. But actually, it's really healthy for young people as early as possible to understand this cycle that, you live and you die, and that we don't pretend that death doesn't happen. And actually, the more that children and young people can be around that, the wiser they become, the quicker they become wise.
And stronger.
Yes.
Okay, because we handhold these kids, and these kids is just become worry adults, and it's like you didn't get no home training. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, because I look at when you look at all the ancestries, okay, they prepare. Even I was in Egypt, and you go to all these different places, and they prepare the body for burial.
Yes.
And everybody is around, and it's ceremonial. And even the kids are a part of that. That's a part of your culture, who you are. You know what I'm saying? Why you want to hide that?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then you wonder why we walking around like this. We don't know who we are. It's because, we lost all that history from the past. And they're trying to permanently strip it off. I told somebody the other day, I was like, if I had a kid now, that kid would be homeschooled for real, period. So, yes, I really appreciate this conversation, even though it was uncomfortable. It's necessary, like I told you. Okay.
Yeah.
And your work is just as important, as babysitting a baby, and all the process and all the things we have to go through, and then we have to figure out, okay, how we want to be, leave this world. Do we want to be cremated, or do we want to be buried, or what is it that we do? What we want,
Yeah.
Some people are buried at sea. I saw that too. So I don't know if that was just in the movies or what. But when you're in war, I know they don't do that now because they have to preserve the body and ship the body. They'll take the bodies back to when I was in Iraq. They would fly the bodies back home so people could bury their service members.
Yes.
Their families. So this is very important. So how do you convince people to start working on this now?
What, to start thinking about the end? By making it, I think I directed TV commercials for 15 years. So I got very good at selling ideas to people visually. And I'm a storyteller. I wrote, directed a feature film once. I've always been interested in telling stories. So for me, the only way that you can get more people engaged with this is to make it somehow is show the benefits of it, because we live in a world where everyone just wants to know what they're going to get out of something, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So that's why I realized that actually this conversation can be the first stepping stone towards discovering deeper purpose in life. So that's why I'm like, right, the way to have this conversation, get this conversation spread as wide as possible, is to convince people that there is potential to be had, and that if you go down this road and have these conversations and step into that fear, and we all know that stepping into fear is where real growth happens? Well, the biggest of all the fears is the fear of death. That's where all fears grow from. So if you could start to just little by little acknowledge your own mortality, you will intuitively step on a path towards deeper purpose in life. So that is the reward you get for having this conversation. And I think that's the only way in the society and the system that we live in that we get more people coming to the table and having this conversation.
You're absolutely right. And there's nothing else going to work.
So that's the strategy at the moment.
It works for me. Now, I remember Stephen Covey wrote a book, Begin with the End in Mind. That was an excellent book. When you begin with the end in mind and you go backwards, like you said, then you have more meaning, you have more awareness, and this awakens a lot of things in you. Okay, to realize the things that you need to be focusing on every day and the stuff that you need to be eliminating. Okay, and you realize there was another book about don't sweat the small stuff, because when you sit back and look at it, it's trivial. Throw it out, move on. Okay, it's a time waster, and it's not going to benefit you or anybody else. That's what this whole thing is showing you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
And there's something beautiful that also happens, I think, if you are brave enough to imagine your end and an end with no regrets, and you can start to plan your life towards that feeling, right? Because ultimately that's the biggie. You want to end your life with no regrets, because you don't want to die with regrets. That's you just don't want to do that. But lots of people do, sadly. What happens is the more you can imagine, step into that fear and imagine your ending, as scary as that may be, you start to take control of your story arc, your life arc, and all the uncertainty and mystery around your death starts to fade a little bit. And with that comes a fading of your fears, because a lot of people are just scared of the end because they're not willing to even imagine it. The more you start to imagine it, the fears come down, the bravery goes up, and you start to live life more fully and with purpose.
That's with any goal, actually.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Same philosophy. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we are what we think. Okay. And what we think is not always correct. And that's where awareness comes in. Okay. Stepping outside of yourself and looking at it from another perspective. And then you can say, no, that doesn't make sense. I need to change my thinking. And that's what I do all the time. Step outside, look at the situation from a different perspective, look and see if it matches up with your intuition. And if it doesn't, if it's off, then you need to think something else instead.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's see if some people have some comments. See, I do see some comments. Let's see what we have here. We need to alleviate the fear of physical passing. Absolutely. An advocate of what the Spirit said. Let's see. We need to toss our trash. Absolutely. Brandon said, I'd love to wake up to John's garden behind him. That would make me a bit happier. Me too. I love it. And unforgettable. Death and taxes. We forgot about the taxes. She said, the advocate of the Spirit said she knew Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. That name sounds familiar.
Yes. Yeah, she's written about this a lot.
Oh, okay.
It's really interesting. If you go back through the ages, all of many of the greatest philosophical minds in human history have all spoken about the importance of recognizing death as a path towards purpose in life. It's incredible, actually. And something I'm doing on my Substack once a month is releasing an essay on, for example, a quote from a famous person. So far I've done Abraham Lincoln, Maya Angelou, and Carl Jung, all talking about this topic and how important it is to have the conversation around death, because it allows you to live more fully.
I love that. Juliana says, what a wonderful gift you are giving humanity.
Thank you. It's definitely been scary for me to do this, to leave my old career and step into this space. But
I can imagine.
it feels very true, and I'm already getting a lot of beautiful feedback from people only 2 months into this.
That's great. Juliana says she did a hospice internship, and to be there for someone's last breath is a sombering reminder. Wow. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I think the statistic is something like 70% of all people who die with major regrets. And so that is what I want to solve. I want to help as many people to get to that point at the end of their life where they're not dying with major regrets. So that means doing something about it now rather than leaving it too late.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm on Substack, to tell people, come on, let's go. While you're still in good health, let's achieve your goals. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get you to where you want to be, because our time on this earth is limited, and our day could be called today. You never know. So enjoy every day, celebrate every day. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And treat it like every day is like your last. It's that carpe diem idea.
Absolutely. No doubt. Does anybody have any questions for John here? Do you have any suggestions or final comments you would like to share with everyone?
Well, firstly, just thank you for the conversation. I'm quite new to this. This is my first ever Substack live call, and I'm still finding my voice. And this has been a scary road for me to take, but I feel like I'm sort of walking the walk of discovering my own purpose in the process of doing this work, and it's very rewarding, very different to anything I've ever done before. But I'm having to really trust into my gut instinct with this. But yeah, I'm already feeling lighter. I'm sleeping better, and all the kind of lovely benefits of experiencing purpose more fully. So I just want to say just throw my gratitude out for everybody who's on the call today, and please check out my the Substack for more information. Dying to Live with Purpose.
Well, I truly love your work, John, and I'm glad you reached out, because this was an important conversation to have. Really was.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. President for You says end of life doulas help people in their transitions. I'm curious what he thinks about doulas.
Well, I am a doula. Maybe that was missed earlier. So I'm what's called a soul midwife, which is a particular type of death doula. But yes, that's where my journey began, was studying to become a death doula. And as I did my study to become a doula, I started to spot this thing, which was, by not having this conversation about death, we're essentially creating limiting beliefs in life. And the two things are connected, like death and purpose, I realized, are two sides of the same coin. And that, the more we have the conversation about this very uncomfortable subject, the more our limiting beliefs start to drop away, and the more courage starts to flow in. And then suddenly we're taking risks and discovering potential and purpose in life. So that I started as a doula, and I still am a doula, but I'm really putting all my efforts into helping people wake up to mortality awareness and the incredible benefits of the simple act of acknowledging your mortality.
An advocate of the spirit says, have you ever used hypnotherapy with dying patients?
No, I've never. What I've tended to do with dying patients is simply sit and be present and not try to fix anything. That's something we get taught in doula school. It's like, you're not here to fix anything. You're just here as a force of unconditional love. And yeah, you just be present and witness and go with the flow and let love make the decisions when things get tough.
Wow. That's amazing, John. You're an amazing human being. And I know you're on vacation now. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation today.
Thank you so much, Margaret. And thank you for all the work you're doing as well. Very inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you all for coming.
See you guys.